Chapter 4, How to in Life. Answering the Why. As you read through this, you might be wondering, what exactly is the takeaway from this book? The true reason that I profoundly and urgently feel that I must complete this book as fast as possible is to add value and be part the knowledge-adding system of this community of people, this city of Louisville, this state of Kentucky, and this great country of the United States of America. Being a deep-down introvert, it has been necessary for me to develop skills as a very good listener and observer for my own personal survival. God's blessings are responsible for how uniquely my life has turned out thus far and how quickly it has progressed, given the many complications I have encountered. I paid little attention to this growing up. It is only now that I reflect on my past that I can recognize the why. My family was so destitute that we could not have been poorer. I was physically weak in comparison to most of the people I grew up with. I was a minority in all communities, including my own Vietnamese community in a small village in Vietnam. I was unsuccessful academically in comparison to the majority. Moving to the city of Louisville, Kentucky in the U.S., I was not able to speak comprehensible English for many years. I was totally trailing on all fronts. From the ground up and by the grace of God, I was eventually able to elevate myself on 2 tracks simultaneously. I became a top-level professional computer engineer at a Fortune 500 company, as well as an owner of small businesses, which are still in operation today. The others in my life have played a monumental role and are primarily responsible for who I am today. I write this book to archive this experience, the techniques, and the procedures that I have accumulated up to this point. My goal is to expedite, improve, and encourage myself and anyone else who wishes to achieve success at this level and beyond. Personally, and most importantly to me, are my 3 sons, ages 5, 6, and 8, who I hope will find these insights useful and helpful in their future journeys. Based on my personal experience, this chapter details the specific steps anyone can take to achieve new heights. Do it now. It is easier to say something than to do it, but it is through the doing that we know what is possible and what is not, a mentor once told me. Personally, I have adopted a do-it-now mentality. I built this approach over time and now certain practices have become muscle memory, and I do them without thinking. To paraphrase Brian Tracy from his book, The 21 Success Secrets of Self-Made Millionaires, it takes discipline to create positive, habitual behavior. Habit leads to consistency, and consistency leads to growth and results. Many say it takes hundreds of repetitions to create a habit. For me, it is whatever repetitive number is required. I do this in the easiest, most convenient way, for as long as I need in order to do it without much thinking. The key to do it now is care. When you care, you will pay attention. When you pay attention, you will focus on the details. Focusing on the details creates a drive to action. The question for all do-it-now behavior is, do you care enough? We are facing a challenge of care in this society. We live in a technological world in which virtual activity has become so commonplace that people think they totally interact and socialize with each online via the internet, but they actually do not, a mentor once told me. He was referring to how destructive social media and the internet have become, especially for children and the young generation. They live in a different world, where care is limited, and individualism is elevated. Actual live human interaction is becoming a burden, and when there is a requirement for real-life work that adds true value to others, we struggle because of the lack of care for the actual human being. However, we have become quite adept in virtual life using avatars online. Care, really care. Put yourself in others' shoes to understand and empathize with the situation. That's when the best of you will show in your actions, my mom taught me. Start small, very small, so you can achieve a win now. Growing up, I was always in survival mode, where everything was urgent and required the do-it-now mentality. Delays in the things I cared about almost always caused me to have feelings of anxiety. Obsessive-compulsive, many have told me after observing me in action. You are a perfectionist, the vice president of an IT company, to whom I directly reported, once told me. It's better to handle a small piece of work immediately than to handle a burdensome load of many small pieces of work later. It's much more digestible that way, a friend told me, and I agreed wholeheartedly. I clean my house daily in minutes, because I do not choose to spend hours cleaning it once at the end of the week. I wash dishes immediately in seconds when there are dirty dishes in the kitchen sink, because I do not like the pile of dirty dishes in my kitchen which require significant time to wash later. I make my bed immediately after I wake up, because I do not like to return to a messy bed at night after a long, tiring day. I organize the shoes in the mudroom immediately as soon as I walk in my house, because I like a pleasing, organized, and welcoming home environment. Overall, I like a clean, organized home environment where those I care about, my family, can enjoy and spend time together. At work, I apply the same do it now concept in caring for the workplace. I notify people as soon as there is any news, because I believe in immediate communication, feedback, and results. I respond quickly to phone calls, emails, and texts, because I believe that those who ask for my assistance need help immediately. For me, everything is done in small doable doses, and instant results occur. In this way, I always sense an accomplishment as the form of encouragement I need to continue, and others around me receive the value add they need from me at the time they need it the most. I see time fly by, just like that, I say often, and I experience this almost every day of my life. When you notice that 24 hours a day is too short, that is when you know you are doing something good for your life and others. You also know you are doing things you love to do, a mentor once confirmed. Education is big and lifelong, study one little thing at a time and stay consistent. Education is significant to me, because I always knew that this was what my parents expected from me. My parents traded everything they had to risk living in the United States in exchange for the freedom for their family that comes with the best educational system in the world. I always knew I had to focus on the immediate target, and never the far-off large goals. I landed in America when I was 12 years old in 1995, and I had to redo the 6th grade. Throughout middle school, my focus was not on high school, but to complete middle school with the best grades that I could. I emphasize the best grades I could, not A, B, or C. The goal was not to fail and be put behind for another year and do the same grade again. English as a second language, ESL, was my major focus, because I knew without English, my educational journey would not go anywhere. In my English learning ambition, I did not wish to be fluent as an English speaker or the best essay writer in the class. I only wished to be able to communicate and be understood. I knew not to expect myself to learn many vocabulary words at one time, but to consistently learn 1 to 5 new words every day. I yearned to be able to understand conversation when I watched TV, so I spent time watching with the closed captions turned on whenever I could. The show was not important, but I was transfixed by the English dialogue. One class at a time, one item of classwork or homework at a time, one passing grade at a time, and then one school graduation at a time. I was always very clear in my expectations from education. However, at this point, I never had a specific destination in mind for my education. I always knew that education would be lifelong for me, whatever it took and wherever it led. I knew it would go on forever, mainly to repay the debt that I owed to my parents, but also the debt I owe to myself for continuing on this journey. Now, I have gained another debt, to be a lifelong learner. That is the debt I owe to the United States, the state of Kentucky, the city of Louisville, the community of the South End Louisville, and most importantly, the people of this country that have made me who I am. At the top of this list are my parents, my ESL teacher, my mentors, and my friends. I am not American born, but I am American made. I share in most of my presentations to students and in mentoring sessions. This refers to my responsibility to pay forward to this community by continuing my education. The education journey does not end. I move forward completing one small task at a time and one class at a time through graduation of middle school and high school. My lifelong learning continued, as I completed 4 years of undergraduate work and graduated with a bachelor's degree and a double major, computer engineering and computer science. I continued for an additional 6 years, receiving a master's in computer engineer and computer science. I persisted and completed all of the coursework in a PhD program in information technology management. To be totally honest, none of these accomplishments were a specific goal for me. My actual ambition was to complete each step forward in my educational journey, and not fail any of the work. I fell but did not fail in 1 or 2 classes during my 4 years of college and retook the classes again for reasons that are not important, but the key is I retook the classes and completed them. As I progressed through each finishing point, I naturally sought the next step, and, of course, the next class was at a higher level. That was my real expectation. Each class taken had to be at a new height, leading me to the next level of knowledge, and potentially, to the next level in my status as a human being. No, I never dreamed of setting a specific goal or said that I would complete college or get this degree or that degree. I often share this with my ments. I did dream of finishing the class that I was taking at the time. I focused on exactly that and expected my direction of education to move up, never down. Know the now, son. Also know which direction you are going, my mom often reminded me. Keep going, walk forward, one step at a time, she encouraged. I understood that she never knew or will know where I stood in my education, in part because of the language barrier and in part because of her working hours. She worked 20 hours a day, 7 days a week for 6 years in Vietnam, and has maintained a 7-day workweek for over 25 years, since we first moved to America. My parents had no choice but to put faith in God to lead their children in the journey that was their dream, higher education. By the grace of God, I always knew, understood, and held on to a strong sense of debt owed to my parents regarding lifelong education. Grades matter, but not as much as you may think. Grades matter, but not so much. What matters is what you learned, I share with my ments. Get in and get out of school as fast as you can, and never fail a class. This has often sparked a few heated debates in my classes and mentoring sessions about the importance of grades. I often use myself as the lowest possible benchmark to measure formal educational success, because my standard was to simply receive a passing grade. After you work in any field for 1 year, nobody cares what your grades were. Everyone cares about your level of education, but not the grade. I confirm this to my students and ments, using my 20 years of experience applying for jobs, interviewing many people, hiring candidates, and working in different fields. I remember clearly that the only time grades were discussed, or we had to show our grade point average, was during my internship, and it had to be shown on the school intern resume. People care about what you can do, your proven capability to learn, and how you find the solution, more than your grades, and what you think you know, a recruiter once told me. She emphasized think about what you know, reminding me that most of us believe that we know something, when, in fact, we don't. We may have heard about it or learned a little about a topic and think we actually understand it. Even when we do know, it does not mean a lot. What is important is how you apply your knowledge, another recruiter told me. Application of knowledge now, learn to learn more. I graduated in 4 years with a bachelor's degree, followed by a 2-year internship at UPS, a Fortune 100 company. I sent out hundreds of applications for an engineering position to launch my career as a computer engineer. Although I was granted some interviews, I fell short on most of those occasions. I was devastated and furious, considering that computer engineer and computer science were 2 of the top degrees during the year of 2005, and I had both of them. I never realized how limited my formal education was in comparison to real-life work until I did my internship at UPS. Almost everything was new to me in a real corporate setting, and aside from some technical terminology and theory, college had not provided me with the knowledge I needed for information technology in the real world. You are a greenhorn and a novice, my colleagues used to say to me, and I could not have agreed more. I learned that college prepared me for one thing and one thing only, and that was learning how to learn. Everything in college was new, so I learned to learn and pass. I applied the same learn-to-learn theory at my internship, and started small, completing one small task at a time. Based on a mentor's advice, I learned to ask the right questions that would lead to the goal faster. I learned to ask a series of structured questions regarding my challenges and problems and drilled deeper each time I posed a question. Drill until you have an answer that is doable and super clear, one engineer told me. I learned that if your answers to a question were still vague and ambiguous, ask someone else. After 20 years as an engineer, I learned that it is not about knowing the answer, rather, it is always about knowing how to ask the questions. I share this information with all my students. To know how to ask the questions, you must have a basis of knowledge on which you can build your framework of questions. Information technology consists of software and hardware. For software, questions need to be asked about the full-stack software building structure. For hardware, questions should be based on the workload in terms of data and processing power. When explaining this, I always allude to the architecture of a house. The architect must lay out the plan so the builder can use the design to construct the building. The same concept applies to almost everything in life. Build from the ground up, but always based on the architect's design. Learning to learn also requires an architecture or structure that each of us must develop for ourselves. Each of us thinks differently, comprehends information differently, and applies our creativity using what we understand differently. For each condition and environment, we each react and work differently. The application of knowledge is often a unique process. We must simply do it and learn one step at a time, while doing it now. Engineer internship experience, learn on the job. During my training as a computer engineer intern, 100% of what I dealt with was new to me. I did not know the database technology, and so I asked my manager for a book to learn about the specific database. I spent 3 weeks reading this book, applying the knowledge as I learned. Then I moved to learning to program my first application for the department, and I did not know the computer language that I was expected to use. Again, I asked my manager for a new book about that specific technology language. I spent another 2 weeks reading and learning to code in that language on top of the new database I had just learned. In the first 3 months of the internship, I developed a brand new functional software for my IT department, which was used by many internal customers, the company employees. I returned for another internship months later, and once again the process was repeated. 1. Recognize a new problem. 2. Learn a new database. 3. Learn a new technology language. 4. Develop new team collaboration. And 5. Build a new software that would solve an existing business challenge. New books were purchased, and time was spent reading and learning new information. Time was allotted for researching the problem, developing the solution, and building the software to solve the problem, and much time was spent collaborating with others. As an engineer, it is always about the new things, new systems, new processes, new applications, new people, new structures, new problems, and more. Each of these new challenges requires open-minded thought to adapt, to ask questions, to study, and to determine solutions. In engineering in general, and computer engineers specifically, you can never get bored if you crave new things. It is the field for you. But if you do not like change, it will be hell for you, a recruiter and mentor of mine once told me. I emphasize the importance of others in this case, where collaboration is the key to successful projects, especially collaboration with my manager on each team and project. I learned to expect the unexpected, such as dealing with new materials and challenges. These projects involved books, documentation, knowledge sharing sessions within the company and department, finding team members who were open to collaboration, and internet access to others' online knowledge. Learn what you need to learn faster. I did not land an official job after graduating with an engineer degree until 6 months after graduation. My computer engineer career started from there, and I wasted no time, but accelerated the process so that I could take my career to the next level. I knew the questions to ask, and I knew what I needed to expect, so I jumped right in with a series of questions. 1. What is my team's core functionality? 2. Who are my team members? 3. What is the core business of my team? 4. What is the system that my team manages? 5. What technology does my team use? 6. What are the team's active development projects? 7. Where do I fit into this picture? All these questions were laid out in my brain, and I tackled them during the first week, to create a mental map of what was going on and to understand where I could add value. Then I jumped into the specific project and started to drill like I had done during my internship experience. What knowledge do I need now? How do I get that knowledge as soon as possible? Do I have enough to start development immediately? How can I complete the job quickly and efficiently to give my team the completed product that can add value to the business? I went to my direct report manager and director and asked if I could accelerate my learning by attending a class from one of the best in the business for training IT people. The course was out of state and required travel. I have never seen a young engineer like you, freshly starting a new career, yet with the courage to ask for something like this, while being very specific and convincing, my director told me. Buying you a book is very easy, but sending you out of state for 2 weeks of training costs significantly more. My director will need to take that request to the vice president for approval. He was willing to make that case for a young engineer, and that was a big step, for that I am extremely grateful to this day. The 2 weeks of training was for a new technology to me, although it was not new to the company. The company needed someone who could act and fix the bugs in the software immediately, so my ask was actually to solve an urgent matter. It cost about $20,000 for the training fee and travel expenses, which included a car, hotel, and meals. I returned from the training and within days, I had fixed the software bug for the company. It is important to note that not only did I receive the training for the software in new language, I returned to the company with an ally and a friend in the business whom I could email or call to ask questions. That person happened to be an expert in the software, my trainer. I literally asked my trainer specific questions about the software bug during the training, knowing that the company had an urgency to fix the problem. I discovered my why deeper during the training, and I returned to the company and delivered the solution almost immediately, within days. My boss and his supervisor were impressed, and so were all the people in the department whose work was related to the problem. I became known by many within the company in a very short time after being hired. Salary matters, but the opportunity to learn matters more. My snowballing career rolled faster each day as I intentionally pushed it to the next level. My goal is always what is in front of me, one step away rather than miles ahead. Only after each project was completed did I think about the next one. I always expected the next undertaking to be bigger, often double in size. I emphasize do it now. Keep your focus only one step ahead until completion, and expect heavier challenges next. This was the only way I would know how much more I could do to add value to the next step. Everything is new in business challenges and projects, and the only component that is repeated is the process of learning, but even this process involves greater capabilities. I found that I learned faster, figured new methods and techniques, and determined how to learn from others more effectively. I call this the learning level, and the higher my learning level, the faster I could solve problems, and the more value add I contributed. My career advanced regularly in terms of salary. I never specifically asked for a raise during my 20 years as a software engineer. Everyone knew that I would request larger projects than the one I had just successfully completed. I moved from small projects with a $50,000 budget to multi-million-dollar projects over the years, and on occasion worked on a few multi-million-dollar projects simultaneously. My expectations for each project were high. I required full accessibility, including tools, people, programs, training, conferences, and more if needed for the specific assignment. Sir, what do you mean you never asked for a raise? Most of the posts I read online indicate that people must demand a raise, a mentee asked, questioning how a person is expected to get paid what she is worth. I did not say that I didn't want a raise. I just expected raises to occur automatically based on my increased value added, because I made it my goal to increase my knowledge daily and showed this through value delivered to teams and companies. I showed my expectation of a raise through tackling larger projects and completing projects successfully and quickly. I exhibited a higher value add, and naturally this meant that higher pay was expected, I answered. Throughout my career, I received annual increases in pay, significantly higher than many, and often in the top 10% of the scale for my career level. If your value add is high, and you are not recognized and given a raise immediately, maybe you should not stay, a recruiter told me once, referring to talent retainment within a company. To keep employees, a company has to provide one of two things, and sometimes both: 1, pay increases, and 2, knowledge boosting opportunities in terms of larger projects, higher visibility for career exposure, and more learning opportunities. For me, I applied to new departments, found new teams, and changed to a new company every 2 to 3 years during my career. I did this for two reasons: 1, to learn about a completely new business and to have new ground to test my skills, and 2, for a pay raise, which was often 15% to 30% beyond what I was currently earning at my company at the time. Focus on your value add to others, and money will follow, a mentor once told me, and I can attest to the truth of this statement. Coming from the third world country of Vietnam and being poor and uneducated in comparison to the majority, working for a company the size of Humana, which ranks 52 among the Fortune 100 companies, was only an aspiration, which I would not dare to dream. I had graduated from Speed School of Engineering at the University of Louisville with a bachelor's degree, and later with a master's degree, but was not hired by any company for 6 months. I learned to learn faster and more efficiently every day of my career life as a computer engineer. I moved from entry-level computer engineering and received promotions and significant raises almost every year, to become one of the first 3 in the company granted the title of Principal Software Architect, the top-level ranking for a computer engineer. Of course, this was not my goal, because I would have never thought it would be possible for a person like me. One step ahead is the only step that I must take, so help me God, was a prayer I often said to myself. Where you lead me is totally up to you, God, but I will give 100% of me today for the step ahead and add the most value I can for the people that I can help now. I often followed this up with another prayer. Share and teach today, open up fully to others. I have previously mentioned that I was shy to a level at which I could not have been shyer. Delivering a presentation during my 6th year of my master's degree program, I was shaking uncontrollably inside, and I could not open my mouth in class. Learn by doing, Mom said frequently to enforce my confidence. So, I learned to overcome my fear of public speaking by simply establishing a conversation by sharing my knowledge openly. I learned that learning is one skill, and helping others learn is another skill. D. Talking is to be understood, we don't talk just to talk. Speak slowly, emphasize the key terms, work with the punctuation, and help guide others toward what you wish them to know. This advice was given to me by my first and most important mentor, Thomas Ransdell. Thomas was the first American mentor that I was fortunate to meet at a Catholic church mass, very early during my 4th year in the United States. He was recruiting young men to join the Catholic priesthood, and I was interested in this career path as a young man. I learned from Thomas Ransdell the power of sharing knowledge and volunteering, as most of the work he did for the Catholic Church was in the form of volunteering and teaching others. This gentleman, over the age of 70, took me under his wing and taught me life lessons in business operating ideas, conversations which took place after we first discussed God. Today, he is still my point of reference for helping others. He taught me to share my knowledge openly and freely with others in my professional and business life. Many have asked me, D, how can you do what you do? You share everything you have learned and done. By this, they refer to the common hesitation people often have about revealing trade secrets. People often believe that if they share all of their information, others will then know how to do their job, giving the company an easy way to replace them, often at a lower salary. It is also assumed that people may take credit for the work and steal the knowledge, using it and claiming it as their own. Another concern is that people can then use your system because they know how you work. In response to these concerns, I often answer, I have learned that what I know is limited. What I believe to be great is not necessarily so. What I believe to be the best technique has been proven wrong time and time again. Knowledge must be validated, and I like to be validated. The others, who comprise an infinite foundation for me, are the major source of my knowledge. I have learned that only when I share with others will they, in turn, share with me. Son, it's best to be the first one to share, so others will be less cautious and open to work with you. Mom taught me how to bounce ideas and knowledge off of others, who may reject my understanding. I am a human like everyone else, and so I do consider the risk of sharing. However, over the past 40 years, I have learned that the risk of thinking I know, when I actually do not know, is much higher than the risk of sharing. I want confirmation, and I want my knowledge to be validated by many as true and correct. In PhD empirical research, this is known as the confidence level, which is in regard to what the research sets out to prove. I want the confidence level of what I know to be as high as possible. Oprah Winfrey once confirmed that after years of interviewing many leaders and celebrities, she has found that people want validation from others. I have learned that validation does not come if I do not share first. I have found comfort in this when I recognize that once I share something, I have already moved beyond that one thing I shared, and onto something else that is much greater. If you only have that one thing you think you should hold on to, then that's all you will have. You restrict yourself to that one thing. Life offers a lot more than this. Learn to love what you do as long as it adds value. A famous American writer, Mark Twain, once said, find a job you enjoy doing, and you will never have to work a day in your life. I have personally rephrased this statement for myself, and often said it to my students and ments, learn to love what you do, as long as it adds value to others, then you will not view it as work. I found that it is a hobby for me to learn new things, to try new things, to work on new things, to create new things, but most importantly, it must add value at a significant impact level to others and the community. Brian Tracy, in his book, No Excuses, indicates that successful people are more concerned with pleasing results, while failures are more concerned with pleasing methods. Here he refers to the focus on impactful work and value added to others as the goal for happiness, rather than simply doing pleasing activities with no value add. Delayed gratification is a common theme I hear in motivational speeches and read in books regarding how to psychologically control self-rewards and a focus on results. I was never exposed to such a theory growing up. I was raised by my parents to just work and move along the path of life and leave a trail of good values as I walk through. You suck at school, someone once said to me. I thought I could never love school or studying. However, over time I learned that the goal is not to be good in school, rather it is to pass through school in order to develop an educated version of yourself, so I did. I learned to love school and enjoyed it more as I studied more. I never thought that I would ever have a career as a computer engineer. College was not lovable, but I learned to love it. I had two options on the table for my college fields to pick from during my senior year in high school: computer engineering and accounting. Both fields are math related and require very minimal English skills, and math had always been my strongest subject. I gave myself these two options simply because I knew I would fail in any field that emphasized English. Computer engineering was a top option because I had been simply introduced to computers by a Vietnamese engineer in a computer lab in the Americana Apartment Community Center. In the first semester at U of L Speed School of Engineering, all engineering students were required to take the same Calculus I class, which was held in a large auditorium with more than 200 students every morning at 8 a.m. It was a struggle for all students considering the class was early and the student population was large, making it very hard to ask any specific questions. I would arrive every morning so high on caffeine that my heart was pounding as if it were going to jump out of my chest. I nearly had a nervous breakdown during the weekly quizzes and tests due to my coffee ingestion. Because of my late night studying, I could not open my eyes without coffee to start the following day. A weekly quiz on Tuesday and an exam on Thursday or Friday. This is the way that speed school weeds out those without engineer potential, one professor told me many years later. Sure enough, when we got to the midpoint of the first semester of the first year, more than half of the Calculus I engineering students had dropped out. Some applied directly to business school and a small number re-enrolled for the next semester to try again. Surely, school was not something I could love, but I knew I just needed to get through it. Most college students knew that dropping mid-semester before the official drop date would save the student from having a bad record, compared to failing the class at the end of the term. I decided to stick with the Calculus I class and fight until the end, taking the risk of getting a bad grade, which for me would not have been terrible, even if it happened. I am not that smart anyway. What do I have to lose? I asked myself, knowingly that completing the class was what I wanted, and I wanted to give it my all for whatever the result might be. The Calculus I class alone required me to spend more than 10 hours per week, because I had to complete 5 pages of homework and study for quizzes and a weekly exam. I worked with a Vietnamese friend in the same class, and worked with my professor through many office meetings, to ensure I could stay afloat and make a passing grade, which I did. At the end of the semester, I received a grade of C-4 Calculus I. There were fewer than 100 students left in the class, since more than half had dropped the course. Mission accomplished, I thought, but there were 4 calculus classes, especially for computer engineers, and the pain continued. The love for college continued and increased with each past class. I learned that I loved the work more if I accomplished it, but first, I had to work hard to do so. Business owning was not so likable, but I learned to love it. One thing about being a family business owner is that everyone in my family is eventually expected to work for the business, and I was in it, but not by choice. I was the main English speaker and translator in the family, and so I was pulled in as a direct response to my family's need. My mom wanted to launch a new beauty salon after she and my sister completed their studies and became licensed by the Kentucky State Board of Cosmetology. I browsed neighborhoods seeking real estate potential for the business, filing city and state business applications, working with contractors and building remodelers, and many other small businesses-related people. As an English speaker, I was the one who had to make the deals for my mom. My small business ownership experience started early as a high school junior. My mom and I launched our first beauty salon in West Louisville, in a location that was described to me years later as one of the most dangerous areas in Louisville. My mom and I simply knew that a beauty salon was a good candidate for our first small business, because we understood that the demand was there, and we could add value as salon owners. We had lived in the south end of Louisville, where the majority of new immigrants were located, and this, too, we came to discover, was also one of the most dangerous areas in the city. Human is human, son. There is good and bad in every single population. If we treat others well, we will be treated the same, Mom reminded me and our family often to boost our confidence and courage as we lived and conducted business. We grew from this one small business to a chain of 9 in a few years after. Throughout many years in business, my mom and I had a few occasions in which we were robbed at gunpoint by thieves who demanded money. We experienced many instances of broken windows, broken doors, and stolen business property. Although some of these experiences were life-threatening, we learned to love it. Risk is part of life, and we let God decide what will happen to us, son. What we can decide for ourselves is value add, and we can do our best using the God given tools we have. Mom would say this to comfort us, especially after each robbery. Many of our old customers, ones we later learned were leaders of churches, grandmothers, and mothers of children in West Louisville, would approach my mom to share, "Emma's, Mary, I have organized the youth at our church and church people to make sure every young person in our neighborhood knows that you are part of us, and not ever to mess with your business again." This was the level of love that we received from our customers when we were unsure as to the safety of our business and staff. We were accepted by the community and received their respect and appreciation. I learned to love being a business owner as the love we received grew among the community. Learn to sell everything as long as it adds value. Everything is for sale as long as someone wants to buy it. A business partner once told me. I have learned that it surely is. As shy as I was in speaking English as a second language, as well as being an immigrant in a new country, selling was a skill that did not come naturally to me. What I did have, however, was a survival mentality. I did what I had to do to survive. What I did learn was from watching my mom sell as she grew her many businesses in Vietnam and the US. I can confirm that watching others sell does not mean that you can do it. All skill requires consistent practice over time. I learned that everything starts from me. I do the work, I add value, I am the supplier, and so I am the one that must be sold first and foremost. Dr. Cindy McGovern confirms these facts in her book, Sell Yourself, in which she states that you are your own personal brand, and the foundation of selling is you. I found this to be true in my small businesses and in the companies that I worked for. You, the seller, are the main determinant of whether the products and services being sold are successful or not. Sell yourself as a professional. I sold myself as a computer engineer. As a computer engineer, I did not progress through the ranks and get promoted because I was a great computer engineer who knew how to program software or code a system. I was promoted because I knew the business, I spoke in terms of business values, and I sold the business services or products using my engineering knowledge. I shared this during my IT apprenticeship sessions. I always had limited thinking about being a computer engineer, believing that if I were technically smart and could program any system, then my value would be so great that I would get promoted to the top. After 20 years in the IT field, I found that this is only partially true. Being a technical expert can only get you so far, a senior vice president of a company once shared with me. He also told me that an engineer who only knew how to do engineering would stay an engineer forever. There's nothing wrong with that idea either. It's just limiting for many people who want to move beyond that, the VP elaborated. Only later in my engineer career did I recognize this more fully. I realized that the real value of the software I built and programmed took place when my customers, the end users, used it in mass and added value to their businesses. Thinking this way, talking this way, and presenting this way made me become a better computer engineer to the company, and of course, the more valuable I became to the company, the more I was promoted without asking. I learned to quantify the value of my codes, my systems, and my work directly to the value of the company. This translation between technical knowledge and business knowledge directly boosted productivity and motivation in my engineering department. Building software on the enterprise level requires integrations of many software solutions built and supported by many software vendors, with whom it became necessary to interact weekly and sometimes daily. The power of translation from technical knowledge to business knowledge is required here, and that set me apart from common computer engineers and boosted me to a top-level engineer. I learned that this number one skill, selling, is the top skill, which led me to management in my career as a professional engineer. Sell as a business owner. In owning a small business, selling is the number one skill that you must possess. Small business owning is about selling something, a product or service, regardless of size, I taught my business students. Of course, I did not have this skill at the beginning, and so I learned to sell over time. I learned that people looked at my physical posture, my facial expressions, my way of dressing, my tone of voice, and my level of sincerity each time I sold something. Personal brand is the most important aspect of all sales. This was confirmed by Mike Kim in his book, You Are the Brand. In today's world of digitalization, where my profile is accessible through the internet via LinkedIn, Google, and Facebook, I discovered that often, my business partners had previously looked up my profiles online prior to our meetings. Branding Yourself by Eric Deckers and Kyle Lacey elaborates on the importance of your online presence. You are branded on social media, and you are the gatekeeper to your business. I learned that my virtual behavior online and in real life must be well structured for my business, for the key to sales is trust building. Consistency in all you do in sales throughout your life matters a lot. This separates the long lasting businesses from those that die, a small business owner once told me. It all boils down to the delivery of the sale, which occurs after all my images have been examined by my potential customers. I have fallen too many times to count. I have been rejected, and there have been many times when no sales were made, resulting in negative feelings of dismissal and shame. Son, people want to sell big ticket items. I start small all the time and build it up. Mom taught me the principle of selling. If you have a product that you believe is of great value to others, sell it at the lowest possible price, say $1, and gather customer reactions. If they buy it at $1, then double the cost next time, and then double, and the double to the point no one wants to buy it any longer. This is called the stress test of the market, and through this, you can determine the value of your product, she continued. I learned to start small in quantity and low in price, and doubled both the quantity and the price as I tested the market. Success builds confidence, a salesperson once taught me, and I know this is true. This technique really works for me. I watched my sales skills evolve every day. I am a walking brand sign of my businesses, and so I must be the best version of myself, I tell myself daily. Do or don't, but not because. Very early in my childhood, I was told by my mother that I must rid my vocabulary of the word because. There is no reason to use the word because in your life. It is used when you want to put a reason on an action that you made or a lack of action. We call that an excuse, she said. I did not understand the meaning of her statement, but simply did what she had requested and avoided the use of because as much as possible. When you use because, you are trying to put blame or responsibility elsewhere. You do not want to take responsibility for what happened or what could happen. Simply put, you do want to act or add value. There will be no blame game at all in my house. You either do, or you don't. Life runs its course and things happen. You either accept, adapt, take on the challenge, fix the problem, or take no action. These are all decisions. Do not divert the situation or the problem to anyone else or to a life condition. Mom often said this to my siblings and me. I grew so very much through her lessons. One top principle of self-discipline, and an important key to life and business success, is no excuses, according to Brian Tracy in his book, No Excuses. Once again, this is far easier said than done. I was nervous in most things I encountered in life, so a fallback defense mechanism for me was to blame others, because it's not me, because it's not my fault, because it's not my responsibility, because the ball is not in my court, or because it is in your department's area of work, and so many more related excuses that I justify to myself. I learned through my mom's teaching to throw out the because, and then I reframed all these statements. For example, instead of saying, because I do not have time to write this book, I simply say, I do not have time to write this book. By doing this, I then start to determine why I do not have time to write this book. Without the word because, it is a statement of fact, and the problem or challenge must be acted on. When the word because is added to the statement, it becomes a solution, even when it is not. In a single word, action versus inaction can be summarized in a single word, decision. Both of these choices have consequences. The decision to either value add now or to not move forward with value add creates a situation in which the outcome is mine to bear. Of course, life has no guarantees in either direction. Who says risk-taking will guarantee a result? It simply guarantees that we will have the chance of having better results when we take action. Inaction results in zero chance, Mom explained to me. Brian Tracy also emphasized these facts in his book, No Excuses. I learned that indecision is the worst part of life. It tears me apart with worry and later regrets, while acting decisively gives me peace. Even if I fail, I accept that I made an effort. Being a dad of 3 young boys, I am learning how difficult it is to be a parent. I read a lot on how to be a great dad and do what I can to prepare them to be wonderful human beings with a great value-add mentality in life. While there are tons of things I wish to teach them, I have learned to simplify my teaching to one standard as their first guiding principle: give me all your effort. Give yourself all your effort in everything you do, and let God handle the rest, sons. I am unsure how effective this teaching is for the boys, but I know that my mom made a strong impression on me using this life lesson. And she killed it every day out there, providing value add to everything she did. Create an environment and condition in which you can thrive. I am who I am because of the environment and conditions that I have been through. I am who I am because of my family, my community, and the people with whom I surrounded myself. Brian Tracy states, in No Excuses, if you associate with turkeys, you will never fly with the eagles. I learned that I become what I must in the environment that I am in, mostly for survival, but beyond survival, I blend in the conditions of life because it is easier that way. Breaking beyond the self, moving beyond the boundaries of my own situation takes effort and intentionality. The will to break through stems from the desire to improve so you can do better and add more value. Growing up, I watched my mom, my number one influence, shatter every single glass ceiling in her life, which was enormously motivational for me. I knew I had to achieve a new height where I could add more value to as many lives on this earth as possible. This is when I began to ask the question, how can I join other circles of influential people? I have always known that being just me is super limited. I need to increase my knowledge, my skill, my physical and mental power, and get social and political support from the infinite source, the others in my life, if I want to help more people. I started small, using trial and error, as I always did. I sought to join small business groups and associations, social and business clubs, and directly seek mentors. During my first few years as a young computer engineer, I emailed top-level engineers and software architects and asked them to have coffee with me, seeking their advice. As I elevated through each rank as a professional, I emailed vice presidents and senior vice presidents of large companies and shared my business ideas that could potentially help the company. Again, I requested a coffee meetup, where I could learn from them directly. Throughout my career, I also emailed CEOs of large corporations in the Fortune 100 that I worked for, suggesting growth opportunities or perspectives on the company's yearly goals. I also asked for meeting sessions where I could learn more. I took all these actions with the number one goal of adding value to the company and to the individuals in their roles. As a young engineer, I had no expectations of any responses. Less than half of the CEOs of companies responded to me, but when they did, they sent a thank you note for my contribution and complimented me on my eagerness to contribute my talent and ideas. The CEOs also advised me on ways to do what I wished to do in the next level of my career by working with certain people who reported to them. No CEO agreed to meet with me over coffee. Of all the VPs, senior VPs, and directors, more than 75% responded to me, and again, most thanked me for the contributions and agreed to meet for coffee and at their office for further discussion. I boosted my circle of mentors from whom I could get direct advice and guidance in a matter of a few emails. Seek mentors. I wanted to be the best, so I set myself up to learn from the best. To merit the opportunity to learn from experts in the field, I first needed to offer added value. I have learned throughout my career that true corporate leaders are more than open to speak and share knowledge with you. They often do this because such activities are aligned with the company's vision and mission, and or they have a genuine personal interest in helping others. However, these corporate leaders are not necessarily open to help others who do not have a value-add mentality. I wanted to see your intention of value-add from miles away. Before I agreed to the meeting, a company VP once told me. By this statement, he meant that he was not willing to waste time on an idea that was fruitless and had no potential. Give me a reason to speak with you by showing me your value-add topics, ideas, and even better, your completed value-add execution, even if it is small, another corporate leader told me. I learned to think as if I were in the role of the person from whom I wished to learn, and I sought advice on execution from a corporate leader vantage point. I received validation of my ideas from these corporate mentors, and then I executed based on what I had learned. At the same time, I kept my mentors posted on my progress. Being a mentor myself now, I can affirm that mentors appreciate being updated on progress. They also want validation that their shared knowledge and effort had value. Seek a circle of people with the same interests and expertise. If you want to be something, seek an existing circle of those with the same interests and learn from them, a mentor once told me. As an IT professional, I joined many software development groups locally, nationally, and internationally, such as Net C# Louisville Developers, SQL Server Database, Java Developer, WordPress CMS Development, Drupal, MongoDB, Cassandra, and many more. Birds of a feather flock together. Tony Robbins, a famous motivational speaker, always shares. Surely, software developers and IT professionals collaborate often and keep each other updated on the current challenges and new technologies. Evolve every day to keep up with changes that happen every minute of the day, a software programmer at one of our meetups told me. Get togethers among professionals have not only helped me hone my IT knowledge and skills, but have also boosted my self confidence, especially when speaking and presenting. Knowing it does not mean you can speak about it. We speak it here, an IT presenter shared with me at a meetup. For speaking and presentation skill improvement, specifically, I joined organizations such as Toastmasters. I spoke within my company and had many occasions to speak at my church and nonprofit organizations, where being a leader and teacher is expected of me. I put myself in the center of my discomfort zone in order to speak in front of groups of people in an effort to overcome my fear of public speaking. As a small business owner, I joined many small local and national business associations, such as the Rotary Club of Louisville, Greater Louisville Incorporated, Louisville Independent Business Alliance, Business Network International, BNI, National Asian/Pacific Islander American Chamber of Commerce and Entrepreneurship, and more. These organizations help small businesses owners link up, share ideas, share connections, provide suppliers and customers, make referrals, and overall boost business opportunities for each other. Small businesses involve many fronts such as government, the business's community, and customers. Business associations keep business owners posted on governmental issues in relation to regulations, taxes, incentives, and contacts for assistance. Businesses involve the community and others. Working with each other is the best way to move fast and on a large scale, a business owner told me at one of the small business meetings. Growth is the emphasis, and growth is best expedited by collaboration. So, learn to collaborate with everyone in your community, a business mentor of mine once told me. He elaborated by emphasizing the importance of being selective. Be selective. My mom often insinuated that the road to success is lonely. It will be lonely doing what you do best. Even your dad does not understand me most of the time, she said, referring to her small business owning journey and her community service through her small businesses. No one can do what you do, nor you can do what others do, because each person's best is a result of their passion, energy, and devotion, a mentor once told me. It can be a lonely path, and you must be courageous to take it. Growing up, our circle of friends was significantly larger, a friend said to me in a recent community meeting. I can confirm that this has been true in my life experience. I sometimes cried out loud when no one was around. I shared this with a group of entrepreneurs at one of the startup meetups. It's so frustratingly lonely most of the time, because what you are doing has never been done, or at least, not done the way you intended to do it. Therefore, you do not have anyone to bounce ideas off of regarding specific issues. Growing up through grade school, college, and on to each level of my professional career and small business ownership, I have seen my circle of friends wither significantly. From high school to my undergraduate years, I saw my group of friends shrink by half. From graduate school to employment, and then back to graduate school, my group of friends shrank by half again. As my career ladder escalated, I once again noticed my group of friends diminishing. I saw myself on a mission to solve IT problems, take new courses of study, read a new book, join a new group of professionals and business partners, areas in which none of my friends were involved. I learned that I am often on my own, meeting new people, learning about new businesses and technology, and developing new business strategies with someone, but these were often new business friends and colleagues. I found myself focusing on the increased value in myself to be able to add more value. I became far different than those around me as the years passed. Over time, I became involved with a totally different group of friends, companies, partners, and mentors. When you find yourself struggling, it means you are doing something new and changing, and that is extremely good, a mentor confirmed about being lonely in success. This is a common theme to all of us. You must be selective with whom you spend your time, because each human being has only 24 hours per day. You may choose to spend it how it best serves you and the most value add to community, my mom once told me. Read daily. We are in the best age of knowledge is a common statement among most famous motivational speakers in the market today. This refers to the vast amount of information and accessibility on the internet today. Reading might be a term we simply use to refer to gaining new knowledge from books, but it can also indicate listening and watching. I am a very slow reader in both Vietnamese and English, so language is not the problem. It is my speed in reading that has discouraged me from this activity. I continued to read, but at a very slow pace until recently. In the last few years, YouTube has started to convert most of the great books into an audio format. I explained this to my students in Ments and added, there is no excuse for me now, but to read, or I should say, it is more like listening to books daily, from which I have accumulated a vast amount of knowledge. Personally, the internet is big for me, but my knowledge base has become much larger since I started accessing audiobooks during the last 5 years. More importantly, these books are free on YouTube. Most books also have summaries of lengthy books that have been shortened to 20 or 30 minutes. How great is that? I asked my audience during our mentoring sessions. I learned that after I started listening to audiobooks, I found many other media broadcasts to be dull by comparison. I watch TV, YouTube, Netflix, or other channels simply to learn new things. However, I have now found that audiobooks are the best of all media. This is mainly due to my being such a slow reader, and I find that audiobooks fill the gaps for me. There is almost no excuse not to learn in this age of free and paid knowledge outlets at your fingertips. My routine for audiobooks includes my daily runs in the car whenever I am driving, and at night after settling my kids into bed. I give myself 1 to 2 hours of audiobook listening time before sleep. I am obsessed by this new form of learning now that I can meet myself craving for knowledge through each completed book. Pray with strong belief and gratitude daily and all the time. You have no control over anything but yourself, is a common saying heard among motivational speakers. This refers to the fact that everything in life changes, and this natural flow is based on the actions that each human being makes. Born 40 years ago, I have spent over half my life as a computer engineer and a small business owner, consistently working more than 3 jobs and 7 days per week. Friends, family, colleagues, and business partners have often said to me, "Wow, you are so young to be so accomplished." I am generally asked, "Do you sleep at all? How can you do it? What keeps you going? How can you keep up with everything?" and more. There is a common theme to these statements, and that is they are all about me in the form of compliment as if I were extraordinary or possibly just lucky. The answer to all these questions is energy. I use a technique to draw, attract, and sustain the energy that drives me daily. The book, Law of Attraction, Unleash Your Dreams and Destiny Through Powerful Manifestation and Meditation, by Jordan Hollis and narrated by Brian Anderson Payne on audio, confirms this fact. The book scientifically describes how everything in life vibrates, and vibration borrows energy from the universe, where everything in it is simply a fabric of that universe. Simply stated, I have faith in the reason for doing what I do daily, and that is to add value to others. I try to push human nature by increasing my eagerness to receive greater satisfaction by adding more value every day. My why is very clear. Typically, I do not question the results, as I have trained myself up to this point to simply act and expect the best. This is called faith. I have faith that God will work His course, work through me, work with me, work me as His tool to carry out the things I wish to do, which is to add value to the people of God, the others. In Law of Attraction, Hollis signifies that this is the manifestation of results using your dreams and beliefs in the universe, as it knows how to conduct its energy to carry out one's dreams and clear visualizations to realization. The subconscious mind is beyond simply a driving force in the human body. It also draws and aligns its frequency of thought in the path of the universe, which has the same destination goal. If one's thoughts are positive, then they will attract and align themselves on a positive frequency to flow toward the same destination. The converse is also true, negative thoughts flow on negative frequencies to undesirable destinations. Scientifically, it is about training your subconscious mind to think, to have faith, to believe deeply in what you wish to have. In this way, your thoughts can be manifested in reality. I did not know any of this growing up, but what I always knew was that God is beyond all, knows all, and does all, and I have learned how to pray in specifics. Son, you do not pray to win the lottery. You must pray specifically to add value. Value will then be added to your life in the form of people, community assistance and support, money, knowledge, and energy. Mom always taught this to my siblings and me, and now I share this with my own sons. I pray to find ways to pass my school class. I pray to find real estate to develop my new businesses. I pray to find new customer populations so my business can scale its value add. I pray to be able to help a lot of people with a similar background to my own. I pray to be more valuable to others on this earth, and so I pray repeatedly for the specific. My prayers become more specific each time I pray, and I do so often. Then I act. I act in the direction of that for which I pray. I pray some more, and then I act some more. I have learned to pray to assist me in my actions. More specifically, I pray for the guidance, the direction, the others, the results based on my action, my beliefs, my mind's visualization, and my wish to value add at an extreme level. Then I leave the rest to God or the universe to carry out its course based on my actions. I give faith in the goodness that comes from the positive thoughts and actions that I have intended and made. I can attest that this praying process will yield two results: 1, the manifestation of what I wish does come true, and often in a greater way than I would have expected, and 2, I can simply act in faith with all my energy, which greatly lowers my stress. The emphasis is on a complete belief and faith in what you wish to accomplish and turn out. The process takes time to run its course, so pray and continue to patiently work toward the goal. I always start my prayers with "Thank you, God," for first giving thanks for those things that have already happened and been manifested. I continue through the things that are about to happen, those issues I wish to be realized and come true. In the Law of Attraction, Jordan Hollis states that gratitude starts and ends with all statements in prayer, a subconscious form of mind training. God and others will help a person believe stronger and more deeply in the focus area for which they pray, because gratitude opens oneself to accept and receive the energy of the universe.